Alrighty, folks. Welcome to the Trade Ideas 12 the Q&A session here. Back again with you from yesterday, Chris Bell, from Trade Ideas Split Notification Team. When there's questions right away, please get those into the questions panel. If not, just going to hang out for a minute, let folks nosy on in, and nobody has any questions. We'll see what we can come up with to keep things on the engaging side here. So again, looking for Q&A, folks, and get questions that goes in right away. We'll set up now. Hang for a moment, let people join, and we'll talk some scans and charts and things of that nature. Software related. All right, let's see, 12:02. We get rocking and rolling here. I think, let's see what we start with here today. I guess we can start with the market itself. What can you really say? I don't think I really expected the market to be up quite like it was, given the news that came out Saturday night. Those that are familiar with my work know how I feel about news. Bear with me, folks. I'm shutting down some programs here. Just my PC struggles when I've got a few different things open here, and I try to stream. I'm not streaming. We're good to go. Just streaming. And some issues. All right, so here's a SPY chart here, and all right, here's a SPY chart, and we've got some sideways action for a little bit here. You can see all through here from beginning of May-ish. Audio is muffled. That's not good. Bear with me. Bear with me. Okay, let's try the audio again. How's that sound? Hopefully that's coming in a little better. Fingers crossed. I'll go if it's coming in better until you guys tell me differently. So a little better. You know what? I wonder if, sorry, I've got a fan blowing on me because I hate air conditioning. Let me try something. I turned the fan down, and well, fingers crossed, because I'm all out of other things here. I have a not so cheap Yeti mic, to say the least. We just have to roll with it, I guess. And moved it closer to me. I moved closer to it. Turned the fan down. All right, I'm rolling with it here, folks. So, bottom, V recovery, not a sideways action, up, going back into sideways action. News comes out on Saturday night. I think everybody was under the impression we'd see a little bit more of a sell-off. Futures didn't sell off quite as much as we expect. All the oil shot up and it shot back down again too. And here we are. So, it's a resilient bull market again. We're up in the nosebleed seats, just under all-time highs right there. And I don't know what else you could really say about it at this point, other than if you are not in a position to really risk a lot or potentially risk a lot, just be extra careful, right? We never, we never know what's going to happen in these volatile times right now. So, I'm still in the position myself where, let's just say, for example, I normally take 100 shares when I'm opening a position. I'm, around that 60 to 75 mark still right now. I'm not jumping in a full lot. So, pretty sharp. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you being here again. Again, open forum here, folks, just in case, kind of droning on, had that mic issue for a second. Assuming it's a little better now. Open forum. So if you folks have questions, interrupt me. Otherwise, I'm going to just talk some charts and maybe move into some scans and some stuff like that here to fill the airspace until. So, for those of you that load the Swing Picks channel or pay attention to the Swing Picks email that comes out, I'm going to make a video for that. And I talked about the SPY and the Qs had much nicer recoveries than many expected. Someday this chart will load. Than expected here. Qs look like they just made an all-time high. Am I crazy? No, just off it. Just off it. Just off an all-time high. But the IWM, and I'll get to that broker question in one moment here. Let me finish this thought. IWM, not so much on the recovery here. Wait. It's not in the mood to work today. IWM, not so much on that recovery. But still looks all right overall. Still looks all right overall on the recovery. Same thing as diamonds representing the Dow. Not quite the same bounce that the SPY and the Qs had. I don't know what else I can do to speed things up here for myself. Yeah, I can shut down. I don't really have anything to shut down. So the diamonds and the IWM a little closer in relation than to each other than with the SPY and the Q. So that's where we are as far as the market goes itself. One of those tricky things. You want to miss out. We're going to continue up, obviously, but it's tough. You want to be participating if we get one of these easily havable black swan news events each night. That's more than possible. So risk management and considering what can and can't happen, what you can and can't risk. That's really where everything's going to lie for you folks at the moment, for anybody, myself included. As far as best broker to use if you're using TI, I never like the question what's best, because it's best is generally always subjective. But what I could tell you is we link to Interactive Brokers. You got to have a pro, not a liked account. We link to E-Trade and we link to Alpaca. I have no experience with Alpaca. I know we have a few users that are using it. I don't really hear from them at all. So I believe that the users with Alpaca are generally our more savvy users. And they seem to be happy with it in some capacity anyways. I don't hear from them basically at all. I don't know, probably 100 users or so on Alpaca, give or take. I would say the rest is split between IB and E-Trade. With Alpaca, there's no extra data charges or anything like that, but you don't have any other interface to really do anything with Alpaca outside of Brokerage Plus. Where E-Trade and IB, you do. You have Trader Workstation and you have the E-Trade web app there. Outside of that, you've got a data fee you got to pay when you have IB. Depending on how much you have in commissions each month, it's in between $4.50 and $14.50 for those data fees. I will say this, whenever any crazy market events happen and other brokers have issues, I've yet to see IB have an issue. For example, when we had the tariff news come out and there's all kinds of issues with Thinkorswim and Charles Schwab and Fidelity, and orders weren't going through and all that stuff like that, IB had no issues whatsoever. All those other brokers did. So there's that. But you got to pay a little extra for it. You pay commissions on trades, and you pay data fees with IB. E-Trade, I repeat, there is no data fees with E-Trade. There are no commissions with E-Trade. However, their API is not the greatest. And the first, let's say 10, 11, 12 minutes the market is open, you're linked to E-Trade with Brokerage Plus, and you're trying to do any of your own automated strategies. There could be issues with the order flow there through their API. That's them. That's not us. We have no control over it. When we brought this to their attention, they couldn't have possibly cared less. Just the way it is with these brokers. So that the data fees waived if you trade enough, like Pepper said there. I'll also say IB has a slightly better short book than E-Trade. Also, with E-Trade, there are restrictions on shorting through their API. So basically, if you are a short seller, you're not going to want E-Trade at all. I'm not aware of any such restrictions with Alpaca. However, I'm not also sure how their short book looks. I don't probably think it's that great, to be honest. If you're shorting your specialty, you're really looking at the specialty brokers for that Cobra Center Point. Those are usually two of the more popular ones. These are the popular ones I'm going to mention those. So there is that. It's the ins and outs with it, the good, the bad, and the ugly with it. If you're just, a casual trader, you're a swing trader, E-Trade's probably the way to go. If you're not shorting at all, E-Trade's likely the way you want to go. Less fees, that. If you're a more serious trader, you like shorting, you want to short, IB is more likely where you go. That's my 2 cents on it. So again, subjective question. We don't have a Schwab directly. That's the difference. There's no link with Schwab. Does not exist. We tried to link to Thinkorswim years ago when it was under TD Ameritrade. They don't have a working API when we got in there, and the API was a mess, and we let them know. They didn't really respond to us on multiple inquiries about it. And that was the end of that. And I'm sure it's no different with Schwab having acquired Thinkorswim. Not I'm sure. Not I'm sure as in like, I don't think it is. It's not. It's not any better. Nope, doesn't speed up your executions at all. The execution is the same, whether you press send for your order in your broker or you press send for your order in Brokerage Plus. There's no different in speed time. I mean, the only difference is if it takes you longer to get to your broker than Brokerage Plus for sending the order, there's that timing of it. We have many users that don't use and never intend to use Brokerage Plus, and they do more than just fine. So using Brokerage Plus and not using Brokerage Plus could never be an excuse for someone's success or failures. We do have an external linking feature that works with most other download application brokers, meaning that if you click on something inside Trade Ideas, it will send it to your broker, whether you want it the charts or the order entry or the symbol entry box. You still have to execute in the broker from there, but it does save you a little step of loading that. This is a video that I did on external linking for Thinkorswim, Trader Workstation, and TradingView. It is essentially the same steps no matter what you do. It must be a download app. You do not link to web apps. You do not link to web apps in any way, shape, matter, or form. That's a short and skinny with that there. So again, anybody else with questions? And then I see a good amount of viewers here. I don't know how many of them are real and how many of them are bots. I suspect 80% of you are bots. But if you have any questions, even the bots, throw a question out there for me. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. So, all right, no questions come in. We talked a little bit of markets here. Well, we got to go too in depth with this. Everybody's looking at the same data here, not always the same interpretation. But bottom line is we have been and we are back in the bull market. Let's see, I downloaded and we'll watch later. Must have watched these. Yeah, I used to like making videos more than I do now. I used to have more free time than I do now, also for making videos. So there's that too. But, as I mentioned yesterday, I was in the users only seat many years ago before I was lucky enough to land employment here at Trade Ideas. So I know what it's like to be in the user seat, not just support member here. But, I have a different view on how the videos are like them to sound and look. All right, so there's that. Um, you can make trades pre and post market. Here's the thing though, you can't fake liquidity or simulate liquidity, right? So if you've got a stock that's like it's kind of sort of trading in the post market, first you have to think about the fact that you're not necessarily getting a fill with your broker. You may be less likely to get a fill in a simulator, ours or anybody else's for that matter. So you just have to keep that in mind. Does it work in that time? Yes. You still have to go in at a limit order like you would with your broker, and you want to try to go in around last price always. And then you kind of hope for the fill from there. So does it work? Yes, with an asterisk. I just brought brokerage plus oil, but for those of them know, paper trader, simulator, whatever you want to call it, located right in there inside of brokerage plus broker options. So there is that as that. Well, let's take a look, I guess, at my top 10 here. I didn't have to reset my layout today. So let's do the top 10 of these relative strength in the open and see if anything is worth a look here. I don't know why I'm so slow right now. I shut down almost everything but T. I shut down everything I could but T. So yeah, I mean, I'm a climber all day. A little bit out the box, pulled back some, pulled back, and starting to maybe show a little heaviness here. We'll see if it can't hold that DRAP and maybe make another run. If not, we're looking at a breakdown here on EIEM. Any liquidity and volume. Yeah, I've never used a paper trader, so I couldn't comment one way or the other on it. But like I said, I think with any paper trader, you're going to run into how liquid is a stock and things of that nature. And of course, I come across a lot of folks that don't know this. And I guess if you're not really an active trader and you're newer to these things, and newer, it can newer mean a month, newer mean a year, it kind of just depends on what your journey structured like. Um, you have to use limit orders in pre-market and post-market. You cannot use market orders; they won't go through. So there's that as well. Yeah, so ZYEN, that looks like a very tradable opportunity there. Easy, never, but tradable certainly. WFF. Whoa, look at this one. Look at that top and shadow right there. Woo, buddy. Well, you feel for anybody that thought on that way there. Mm, tough one here. So, wait a second. What is going on? This is halted. That's what's going on. All right, halted. So, yeah, this thing made some crazy runs here throughout the day. I don't know what's going on there. A lot of volume, a lot of liquidity still. I don't know what's going on there. I would consider that not tradable, quite personally. I'm sure there are people that made plenty of money on it, and I'm also sure there are people that lost their shirts on this, and pants and socks and shoes probably too. So WFF, let's see. Sorry, let me call my task manager. See, if there's anything hidden in the background here that's tripping me up because this is unacceptable how slow I'm running right now. Mm-hmm. Let's see what that does. I hope there's no issue. WFF CREV. Not sure what this at all. It's tough. Another one. I don't know how tradable I would consider this to be. A lot of volume, a lot of liquidity, big topping and bottoming shadows, these huge moves back and forth like this, on such a low price stock. Kind of tough. But it was there. And again, I'm sure someone traded it did well. I'm sure someone traded it that didn't do well. Not exactly anything you like for the long term here. It's been a long skid here, a year skid. That one pop up, interestingly enough. WXM. Look at that here. And again, folks with questions, please, you don't have to be on the sidelines, just kind of listening. If you got a burning question there for me. So, this is less tradable than everything else we've looked at to this point. I mean, nope. Not there's much to comment on that. I am it's the gap up and a go for three, 2.5, 5 minute candles. Well, I'm not sure exactly where it went because we got 1, 2 up, gap down. So gap down. Opened here and traded up a bit and just started collapsing from there. So not really much of an opportunity there. And would surmise that that's all done for the day. Also, I've talked in the past; those might have been around here. Like sometimes stocks have personalities. I can tell you right away, like this daily chart. The stock has a personality of doing exactly what it did today. Look at that. It does it on larger and smaller scales, but it likes to do it. That's its personality. Big gap ups, run up, and then fade for the day. So, more likely than not, that's where it's headed for the rest of the day is down and lower. MFI. You know, giving us a different look here. Move up, really wobbly through here, and move up and a pull back to a move up and giving it back again. But it took out high a day here. It's all right liquidity, all right volume. Could be better, could be worse. Thing has been on a tear actually overall. That was pullback days and gyrations there, but this thing has certainly been on the move. Some larger volume days back here, blip there, but compared to all that, not a whole lot doing on the volume side of things there. Let's see, let's move on. LELI. Again, as I keep saying, I'm just kind of throwing this stuff out there right now to fill some airspace. It's much better if you folks ask questions, but there's that too. There's RELI. A little different look here than some of these other ones. It's kind of straight grinding through the day. It's not, again, got these big shadows up and down. Reversal bar here, reversal bar there, right? So, we consider these items here. The volume has been in and out for the day too. Again, decent liquidity, decent volume. All these have been on the smaller side for floats. Mostly been in a skid long term here. Trying to pull itself up now. The hot topic of traders last week. Yeah, I can see that right here. All right. Notice that's Friday. It was Tuesday, it was Monday. So it's Friday, Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday. So, yep. You can see that right there, right there, right there. Clearly not quite the volume that it had last week right now. Let's see, we got RGC. Well, this one is a hot one. Last couple of months, really, nearing the end of June. And it really took off, gave some back, trying to find some life today, maybe. Again, no relative volume here, to really speak of. All right liquidity, though, at 1.9 million shares traded. Just kind of fading on the day after that initial big move up here. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with it. PONY. Had itself quite a move exiting April and then May, ran sideways, gave some of that back now. Going to that downside, trying to find maybe some footing here. Plenty of liquidity. Volume is, fairly in line with what it's been the last 30 days, all things considered. There's that, and it's held above, just went under VWAP, bounced back over it, building that EMA cloud slash the like the EMA and the chart. We got that going on there. Tony. And last but not least, in the top 10 here, WLDS, wearable devices, or accessories, and other apparel manufacturing. So this thing, obviously, terrible long-term chart here as far as the daily chart goes, down 96.58% to this point over the last year, and 80% in the last 5 months. And yeah, just a ridiculous pop for whatever reason here. Lots of relative volume, good liquidity, but there's no discernible, oh, look at this pattern that's happening, forming here, or some kind of technical analysis to really be done. This thing, it's a 700K. Someone or some marine ran it up, hoping to sucker people in, and then pulled the ripcord that you're comfortable betting money on that. So that's rounds out the top 10 in that relative strength in the opening. Let's see. I'm curious, when you click on a chart and you see a big mover, like all these are, do you click on the news tab too to share what might be moving that stock? Nope. I never look at the news. I make painstaking efforts to not look at the news. It is everything I can do in my power to block out the news. Unfortunately, the news filters in through my Twitter feed on occasion. But anybody that's news heavy that comes across my Twitter feed, they get muted. Or if I was following, they get if people become news junkies that I follow, I unfollow them. I could not possibly care what's going on. I could not possibly care less what's going on in the news and the world and all that. And someone will say, "Well, how do you know what's going on?" I say, "I don't. I don't care. I don't care." Like the news every night is the same five things. This person got shot. This building burned down. There's these car accidents. The weather happened, and then there'll be like 5 seconds on something good that happened. That's the news every single night. Sorry, we could add another thing in there. There's some conflict going on somewhere that I have no control or stake in whatsoever, and I can only comment to that. That I hope it stops. And don't let people dying. That's all. Nope. I don't look at the news. I don't need to know why the stock is up. The stock is up because there's more buyers than sellers. Stock is down because there's more sellers than buyers. I find, when I was a new trader, or newer trader, I think I'll always consider myself new, but I just found that the news would improperly influence me. Now, I know there are people that disagree with me, and they're more than welcome to. They're not wrong, and I'm also not wrong. There are people that they absolutely need the news for their trading, and they trade magnificently the way they trade between technical analysis and news, and they should never stop what they're doing, right? I just found for me, I just didn't need it around it. It was one more thing for my brain to process that I didn't need to add to it. So that was that short and skinny in life there. And keep the questions coming, folks. Keep the questions coming. Yeah, I mean, merger's a little different. What's actually happening. Other than that, I'm a believer in the old cliche, buy the rumor, sell the news. I live in that world. Buy the rumor, sell the news. So what else? What else? What else? It's funny. Anytime Holly has a bad day, you get a bunch of emails about the bad day. Anytime she has a good day, I don't see one email coming in about it. Never. It's amazing to me. I don't really use Holly. You know, I think Holly is specific to certain folks in trading. But I mean, looking at that max profit column today, not too shabby on three of those trades to say the least. And all of these at least made it into the money for a hot second on those. So again, I think we talked about that yesterday, that all of them were in the money. And you still got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are still in the money as a matter of fact now. Where every one of these, like, oh, that's the trade. No, they weren't. You still got to have some education under your belt. And yeah, no, without a question, without a question. Without a question on those things. So what else is happening here? What else do we talk about? What else do we do? You can mess around with the back tester, I guess, for a little bit here. You pull out something that looked really good in the back tester for a minute and it fell apart completely. Here's something I was working on actually last summer, and this thing looked great right in through December. This thing had almost like 6 months of looking good in the back tester, just retesting every day without making any adjustments, and then all of a sudden it just came completely undone. Let's give it a shot. See what's going on. Oh, it doesn't look like it's so bad anymore. This thing was absolutely horrific. Oh, no, this isn't good. And someone say, why isn't it good? Really, these 2 days make that up. Yeah, there's a couple of all right days here. That grouping's not so great. But it's this thing. It went like this. In the equity curve. The equity curve isn't really that important. You want to look at this is what you want to look at: average winner, loser, and profit factor. You need this to be 2x that right there. That'd be at least that. So when I first made this, it was actually like a nice equity curve that was like this, and it stayed like that for almost half a year, just back testing without making any adjustments. And then it was like, yeah, like that. And I haven't tested this in many months now. But, an improvement there. So it just shows that different markets, will benefit, or different scans will benefit in different markets, or suffer in different markets. Interesting. Can I say what scanners I use and are using now? What you see up here, I really only use one scan out of this scan here. I'm really just swing trading only these days. So I'm using this scan here. I call it my evening scan. I'll put a link to it for anybody that wants. If it doesn't have already, bear with me, and then I'll go over what the scan actually does. So here's a link to it. This is what the scan does. Looking at stocks over $11, got to be 75% above the low of the 20-day range. So I want to see stocks that are trying to break out over 20 days, possibly they're leaving no man's land behind. Maybe 75% above the low of today. I want to see them trying to close strong going into tomorrow. Relative volume of 1 in 750,000 shares traded at the minimum for the day. And that's the short and skinny what I'm trying to do with that scan. That's it. Trying to find stuff that's finding itself an uptrend over the last 20 days and continuing that uptrend into tomorrow. I take a position in these things sometimes. Sometimes I'll enter it today and it makes a huge move and I'm exiting it today. It makes a move into where I was hoping it would go. Sometimes it makes a move right down towards my stop on the first day and I'm exiting it that first day. But I'm generally hoping to hold these for, 1 to 3 days most of the time and then reset or maybe exit most of the position, but leave a little core piece to trade around. That's what I'm doing there. The rest of these scans here, I used to use this when I was day trading. I don't use either one of them anymore. When I first started using trade ideas, I traded Holly a bit more. But as I came up with my own kind of trading plan and rules, the Holly stock started to fade away from it. I look at them still. Occasionally there's something that comes through that I like the daily chart, and I'm going to track that, and possibly a swing trade happens in that. But I'm really specific on what I'm looking for, and I'd rather not trade than force something that I'm not 100% convicted in. This scan here, I just put the fill space. It's based on Barry's 10-day daily breakout scan. That's what's going on there with that. And this is just my liked. You're on here for various reasons. The symbols are on there. A few of them are dividend stocks that I've owned for a very, very long time. Like I own ARCC as a dividend stock for a very long time. ABR as a dividend stock for a very long time. CGBD I own as a dividend stock for a very long time. Before my 401k, I reinvest the dividend. I add a few shares to it every month on my own on top of that, and it just roll them over nonstop. And not that I don't care what the share price is, but the share price doesn't really affect anything to me. There's an ultra long game to those there. Rocket Lab, I had a swing trade in a few weeks ago. I just never took it off. AOI, I had a swing trade in many months ago, maybe even almost a year ago. I just never took it off. I had a swing trade in this not that long ago. CORZ, I had a swing trade in a very long time ago. And these two I've been watching and tracking for a little bit here. So that's why those were on my like list. So that's the short and skinny with all that there. Yeah, so that's the short and skinny that's there. One other scan I'm going to share real quick here that I use for my swing trading. I'll share it and then I'll go over what it's looking for. It's a lifetime high scan. I use the scan in multiple fashions here. One is how full is this with stocks at or near all-time highs? The more there are, the more bullish the world seems. And then, I like to find stocks that are, at or near all-time highs. I've obviously been breaking away, just straight out breaking away. I'm not going to be much for that. CRDO, this one will forever have broken my heart. Took one of my largest losses ever on this, only to have it turn right back around. And anyways, that's life. That be life. And I took this loss on the stock at $17 a long time, last year, a year, or whatever, 2 years ago. Look how strong that chart is. Just strong, strong, strong. And someone say, well, why do you think it's so strong? I'd say this, kind of unwound here with some of the stuff that went on, but it didn't sell off like the rest of the market, that it wasn't as violent. It was more orderly of a sell-off, and recovered very well. And then a real positive reaction to earnings, and came down and essentially filled that gap. A beautiful bounce off of that. That's for me, and what I'm looking for. That's my dream. I did not get that stock because I was involved in other stocks at that time that unfortunately didn't do as well as this. But that's the way the portfolio allocates sometimes. Why do I prefer swing trading versus day trading? It's a personality thing. When I first started doing all this, I thought I was going to be a day trader, and here we go, and this is going to be great. And I learned that my personality is just not great for day trading. I don't want to have to move too quick on things and overthink. I find that I can take smaller share sizes swing trading with deeper stops, so I don't get I don't get shook out as fast, and I'm not punished as quickly to the downside if it turns against me, making me all nervous. And on the upside, I'm more comfortable letting things work. And on the upside, if things are working well, I'm more comfortable adding to a position. So for those reasons, just swing trading just works better for me. I'll also say this. Once upon a time, someone had told me you don't see any wealthy day traders, to which I took great exception to. Great exception to that. And when they said wealth, they said, you don't see billionaires that are swing traders. You see people that do very well, and sure, they're well-to-do and probably never going to worry about money in their life again as day traders. Yep, we find those people without a question. He said, but the real money is in the buying and the holding and the waiting, both waiting to get into the position and waiting to get out of the position long term. They were right. Just as simple as that. It's as simple as they were right. There's no arguing it. You don't have to like it. I certainly didn't like that whatsoever. Resisted it for a hot minute too, but that's the way it goes. But, you want to try to get in and out of positions like this thing on a daily basis here? Do you want to find this trend? Let's just say here we see a bottom, and we see this move out of this consolidation, a breakout here, and we decide we want to be a part of this next breakout and got into that. Imagine getting that, right? You wait for this setup here, you get that. And even if you didn't get this part of it, it's a really nice move there. Even if you only had 100 shares of that, just even 100 shares of that could make some people's month right there. So, that's why I like swing trading. Barry's still a day trader. Barry's without a question still a day trader. Andy was a straight up, he'll tell you he was a straight up junkie day trader once upon a time. Steve was too. They both were great day traders. And for whatever, for various reasons, they both moved into swing trading. I think, I'm not going to speak for them, but I would be comfortable saying for either one of them that while they're swing traders now, if they get into a position that makes some crazy move the day they get into it, they're likely taking some off right away that day. Is it a guarantee that happens? No, of course not. But those two know how to manage the position. They know how to take profits. They know how to add the positions. They know, they've been doing it for 20 something years now. Nobody does this for 20 something years, and after 20 something years, they don't know what they're doing, right? They know what they're doing. These guys are professionals. Vito, sorry, you put up BB IA before. I didn't look at that. BBIA. Sure, we could look at that real quick. Pardon me, Vito. I didn't mean to ignore that. I was, talking about the scan here and kind of went off on a tangent there. BBIA, is that a stock? No, it's a stock. BBIA is a BBAI. BBAI is a stock. AI stock, I think, right? Come on, chart. You can load. I know you can do it. There you go. Excellent. So yeah, this thing is holy cow liquid. 26 on the short float there. Almost 27. Got a short growth, so it means even people are piling in as a short. Days to cover is small though, so that means if everybody's short were to try to cover, it would take them less than half a day to cover. So it's not that much. I don't know that there's a squeeze potential there for that. To be honest. Just because of that, could it happen? Sure, it could. It could for sure. You also got to ask yourself, where are people short this thing, right? Are they short it down here? Are they short it in here? Are they short it here? Are they short it there? All right, so ask yourself where likely places that people are short this stuff. Could it squeeze? Sure, why not? 27% short float, it could. No logical reason it couldn't. Big trading is not staying takes too much time and not capture the time if you want to do yourself to your screen. Yeah, look, I've met legit, very successful day traders. Have I met 1,000 of them? No. I met maybe a dozen or more of them. I don't think there's a lot of people that try it seriously to start with. I think it's fair to say that 95% of people that think they're going to become a day trader, they never really understand what it takes to do it. And of the 5% that begin to understand what it takes, how many of that 5% are actually going to do the real work to get there? So, it's just kind of like that. It's hard, it's hard, and there's no promising rewards, which makes it that much harder, at least for me anyways. It can become very discouraging in the sense that you put a lot of time and a lot of effort and feel like you're doing all the right things, and you're simply not getting rewarded for it. It's extremely discouraging. So, all right, folks, I have a meeting at 1 o'clock Eastern that I have to attend. So, oh, I never shared that lifetime scan, and I didn't say what was in it. Here's the lifetime high scan. Here's what's in that scan. So we're looking at stocks that are $8 or more, relative volume of 1 or more, traded a million shares, and got to be 85% above their lifetime low, essentially. So we want to see stocks that are basically within 15% of their lifetime highs. There's no problem. I was saying that about day trading. There's no promise that there's any success in swing trading either. But here's the thing. Again, you can take smaller share sizes, wider stops, number one. I feel like it's easier to decipher trends on daily and weekly charts than it is intraday charts. And I feel like daily and weekly trends are more sustainable than intraday trends for the most part. It's just, that's my 2 cents. It doesn't mean it's right. It's just how my brain interprets and looks at the data. Again, there's no right or wrong with this stuff. The only wrong is trading without a trading plan. If trading without a trading plan is gambling. Same thing as pulling the handle on a slot machine. Because at least with poker, you're not supposed to. At least with poker, you can count cards, right? Or blackjack, same thing. There's percentages you can pay based on what to play, based on what's on the table and things like that. There's gaming that can be done, statistical analysis that can be done. With the slot machine, there's no statistical analysis. There's none of that stuff like that. You just pull it, you put your money in, and you pull the handle, and you pray. That's what trading without a trading plan is. It's a slot machine. But I'd say you're likely to do better with a slot machine, or lose your money at least slower with a slot machine than you are with day trading without a plan. Again, just my 2 cents. So, folks, I'm going to start to wrap it up here in the next moment or two. If anybody's got questions pertaining to the software, fire those in at me, please, 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 please. Yeah. A long time ago, I say a long time ago, well, it seemed like a long time ago to me anyways. Dan used to do a podcast, and he did it with a gentleman that used to work for traders, Jimmy Hodge. They mostly did it together. This is back in like 2017, I want to say, 2017 and 2018. And they talked a lot about trading and poker together. They have a lot of relation. But, you can equate trading to a lot of things. You can equate trading, I think you could absolutely equate it to golf. Dan likes to make a lot of golf references in trading now. I make that connection big time. I used to golf a lot, and then I'd like to someday again, but I don't. Dan's also made trading connections to, what else was the other one he used to make? I can't think of it now. There was something else besides poker and golf that he used to. But I feel like you could make that connection with other sports. Just a lot of psychology connections between all those three things: poker, golf, and trading. A lot of psychology connections that you can make, and in the end, the markets are very psychological because it's human beings and those kinds of things like that. So. Is there a search chart like IBO? I mean, I'm sure there's a scan that caught it somewhere. I don't know what IBO did today. I don't have a scan that caught it. My scans caught it. Whatever at the moment. And IBO isn't even doing anything today. This stock was probably, well, it wouldn't have been on my scan, I guess, because it's under $2. But yeah, you probably might have found this in the Explosive Winners channel. So, net trade, you have found that in the explosive winners chain without a question. So. All right, folks, that's going to be a wrap for me. I get ready for a meeting at 1 o'clock. I appreciate you all hanging out with me for the day here. I think we had a nice session yesterday. I think we had a nice session today. I can't stress enough how much I appreciate folks coming in here, the questions, comments, the interaction. It means a lot. It means folks are engaging with the software. You're trying to put the work in, and that's all anybody can do, right? And then, from there, it comes down to formulating that plan, testing that plan, sticking to that plan, having the discipline to ride it out, having the discipline and the patience to test it on paper first. Those are the real keys out there, and those are the some of the steps for the folks that end up in the long game of this whole world of trading. So, thanks again, folks. I will not be here tomorrow. I don't think I'll be here Thursday or Friday, but you never know. I mean, I'll be here, but I won't be here live. So we'll see how that all shakes out. Thanks again, folks. Have a great rest of the week. And if I don't see you before then, I will see you next Monday. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.